All right, well into the third quarter of the year, and housing markets all over the country are struggling with inventory in particular and some other things. How's Utah's housing market doing? Well, let's look at the numbers and the nuance and find out. How's it going? My name is Christopher McGee. I'm the owner of Halcyon Real Estate. I'm affiliated with the Keller Williams in Salt Lake City, Utah. Today is the last day of July, the 31st of July, 2023, and this is the numbers and the nuance. Yes, I changed the name if you've been following along. It was just the numbers, the real estate numbers, but I'm not just spitting numbers at you. I'm giving you the numbers and then getting into the nuance, the important nuance of those numbers so that you're not lost on what's going on in a multivariate analysis. Either way, this is where you come if you want to know what's happening in Utah's housing market right now, because I'm looking at the data every week, I'm plotting those points, I'm tracking it over time, and I know what the trends are. You're not coming here to find out what last quarter's trends were in order to find out what we should be expecting right now. It's not a good way to look at the data. Let's jump right into it, but right before we do, just remember, if you're lost on what any of these numbers mean, watch my real estate numbers explained video that's flagged in the top right of your corner right now. You can get solid on all that. Right now, let's look at the last week's numbers. All right, first, our inventory. The number of homes available for sale in Utah right now sits at 8,395. So we're still coming up. It's up by just 20 from the previous week, and the trend is still up since the beginning of April. Our average days on market, how long it takes, the number of days it takes for that property to accept an offer and then go under contract. That number currently sits at 43 days. So that's up 5 from our previous week, and it's been hovering around 40 since the end of May. This is the first time it's gone over 42 since May 22nd, at which point it was sitting at 49 and on its way down. So it was on its way down, hovered around 40 for just a little over 2 months. Now it's at 43. We'll keep tracking it and see where it goes. Our list price versus our average sold price. So on average last week, list prices for homes in Utah were $626,756, where our average sold price, $617,813. And the difference between those two numbers comes to 8,943, so down just a little further away from no difference between those two numbers than it was the previous week, by about $2,100. If you zoom out wide enough on this data set, like to last quarter of last year, we see that it's trending slightly up and to the right. It's getting a little bit closer to no difference between average list price and average sold price over that span of time. But really, it's been hovering between about $12,500 to $4,500 as where we've been ranging since about mid-March this year. And so we're smack in the middle of that right now. The number of homes that were sold last week came to 474. That's down by about 100 from the previous week. Still keeping a steady trend of a bit over 500 sold per week. Week before last, we were at 571. So over 500 by more than we're now under 500. And we see the trend line pretty flat. But throughout the second quarter and into this quarter, we've really seen about 530 homes on average sold per week. The number of homes that are currently under contract sits at 4,950, and that is up from the previous week by just 7. And we're still spying the beginning of that trend down that we talked about last week. Remember, we expect that trend to be seasonal, just for the month of July, and we'll see what happens with it in the future. We'll talk more about that in a moment. The number of price reductions that happened last week, the number of times that a seller thought, I should probably drop my price in order to attract a buyer. That happened 905 times last week. That's up by 60 from the previous week, and this has trended up since the beginning of the second quarter. And finally, our number of homes, our number of listings rather, that were either canceled, expired, or withdrawn from the MLS, that number comes to 292, so down by a mere 5 from the previous week, which was down by a mere 2, I believe, from the week before that. So still staying within the strong trend we've had of just under 300 of these per week, which really shows strong seller confidence in their ability to sell their home on our market. Okay, so what's the nuance in these numbers this week? So just a couple of things I want to point out. Our inventory is still climbing, up only 20 from the previous week, so not as strong as we've seen it rising throughout the last couple of quarters. So we'll see in the next couple of weeks if we're cresting the top of the wave for rising inventory. As for now, we'll take all these gains that we can get. Now, our number of homes under contract still sits just under 5,000, just under the 5,000 mark, and we've seen it just trailing just under that, as we can see on the graph. And as mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is the very last day of July, and as mentioned in last week's video, there is a typical seasonal decline in home buying activity through the month of July. So that means we would expect there to be fewer homes under contract right now, and we would expect there to be slightly fewer homes sold looking at next month. And we'll follow both numbers, of course, and we'll see whether this is the typical seasonal dip that we expect in the month of July, or whether it's part of a more extensive trend. Okay, so overall, Utah's housing market is looking strong. Inventories continue to reach a more balanced place. Homes on the market are sitting on market for a little over a month, a little less than a month and a half before they go under contract. And we've continued to sell a little over 500 homes every week throughout the second quarter and into this third quarter, really for about 5 months now. So our interest rates slowing things down? Of course it's slower than it would be if we were looking at 4 or 5% interest rates. But really the segment of our population that's struggling because of those interest rates are our first-time home buyers. Those folks who don't have a home to sell gain a bunch of equity from that and turn it into a down payment on what they're now buying. So first-time home buyers are kind of struggling with these high interest rates. Everyone else is really moving when and for the reasons that they would move anyway. There continues to be a lot of people who want to live in the state of Utah. Our population growth continues to be steady, and population growth is a far better marker of what's going to be happening in a housing market than is interest rates. Okay, that's it this week. Thank you for watching. If you or anyone you know is looking to move coming up in the months this year, please reach out to me, let me know. You want to work with an agent working in your best interest, communicatively excellent, and of course knows the numbers. I'd be happy to help you. So guys, I'll see you next week.